This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. We are at week 9 of our Cleveland Browns recap, and this is the return of Deshaun Watson in this game. And given that it's the return of Deshaun Watson, a lot of focus is going to be on Deshaun Watson in this game. But I have 3 things that I want to just start this video out talking about what I learned from rewatching this game. The first thing is just a reminder of how terrifying this Cleveland Browns defense is when they are firing on all cylinders. Now, again, the Arizona Cardinals at this point were not playing good football. They had Clayton Tune in there, who he was a fifth round draft pick out of Houston, and he went 11 of 20 for 58 yards. I'm not saying they're terrifying because they made Clayton Tune look bad. They just made the entire Arizona Cardinals operation just look incredibly inept. And again, it probably just was. Clayton Tune was their leading rusher. They had nobody to run the ball. They had nobody to throw the ball. The only players that they had that are like known NFL quantities are Marquise Brown and Randall Moore, and they're going to get them the ball to save their lives. It's absolute domination from a defensive line perspective, from a linebacking perspective, from a second level perspective, from a third level perspective, from a safety perspective, from a corner perspective. You pick a player on this game, they probably played well in the Cleveland Browns defense, and they probably had a big play at some point. It was just a free-for-all. It was like watching somebody get jumped is the best way I could describe watching the Browns defense in this game. It's like watching somebody get jumped, or like watching a really good tag team in pro wrestling that everybody just tagging in and getting them some. Like, that's what it was. It's like Myles Garrett going to get 2 sacks. All right, tag in Shelby Harris. He going to get a strip sack. All right, now I'm going to tag in my homeboy Maurice Hurst. He gonna get a sack and get to rub his belly. And then I'm gonna tag in Sione Takitaki. He gonna get an interception. And I'm gonna tag in Grant Delpit. He gonna get like 3 TFLs. And then Grant Delpit turns around and is like, oh, you want some? You want some, Denzel? Tag you in. Denzel gets him an interception. And then he looking at Juan Thornhill like, what, you want some? All right. Juan Thornhill gets a pass breakup. And then it just goes around and around. It was a community ass beating is what this game was from the Cleveland Browns defensive perspective. Like, everybody got some. Everybody got some. It was a Snoop Dogg and a Dog Pound song. Like, everybody got something in this one. It was nuts. Okay. It was crazy. Poor Clayton Tune. Poor Clayton Tune. They did him wrong. They did him wrong. Now, look, I'm going to be honest with you. If this was Kyler Murray's first game back, he would have got tossed like this too. The Browns defense was just clicking at a high level, and the Cardinals just did not have the facilities to do anything about it from a structural standpoint. Like, even the Kyler Murray were in there, he might have scooted around a little bit and got a little bit more than 58 yards, but let me be honest with you. It wouldn't have been much else. Like, them corners were covering. That defensive line was just blitzing. There was not much room for success, no matter who was the quarterback, if that's going to be your offensive line and that's going to be your run game. Browns just got comfortable in this one defensively and just destroyed them. So that's the number one thing that I walked away from. I'm like, okay, when this Browns defense is clicking on all cylinders, they're the best defense I've seen in quite a while. They're the only defense in the NFL that like terrifies like me when I watch them, where I'm like, wow, they can be scary. Second thing I learned in this game, Deshaun Watson came back again. And look, he had 2 comebacks this season, which is not great. But he came back again, and he started very slow in this game. He was not that great in the first couple drives. He got a little bit on his feet in his third drive of the game, then cooled down, and then warmed up again. And it seemed like he really just found his groove, throwing the ball deep. The short passes, and this has been a thing with Deshaun ever since he's been in Cleveland, ever since he took that 2-year hiatus. Man, them short throws are where the mechanics, where the lack of comfort really show themselves. But on those deep throws, he's still money. So look for that to see if that's going to be a problem. Like when we're watching Deshaun in camp, when we're watching Deshaun in these games early on this season, are those short throws under control? Because seemed like he had a hard time getting them under control even in this game. I'm interested to watch the Baltimore game and see where those short throws are at that point. But yeah, that was something worth pointing out in this one. And the third thing is, oh my God, we miss Nick Chubb so bad. The run game, like I was watching this game and I felt like the run game was pretty decent while I was watching it. Then I looked at the numbers they were producing and just realized how used I got to garbage run game without Nick Chubb. Like they were averaging like 3.6 yards per carry, but I was just happy that it was moving the ball at least on the ground. The Browns are going to miss Nick Chubb tremendously, especially since Kevin Stefanski, no matter who is out there, he's going to run the ball 500 times. He's going to throw the ball 500 times, right? He's going to be balanced in his offensive approach. That's something that Kev has gone out of his way to let y'all know he values. You look at his pass run numbers, they're usually pretty well balanced. He seems to be close to a 50-50 ratio guy on that stuff. And when Nick Chubb's not there to take the bulk of those 500 carries that you're going to give on the ground, you miss it. You miss it. This game was really over once the Browns went up 10-0 like in the first or second quarter. So I'm not going to act like it cost you anything, but like I'm pretty sure if Nick Chubb played in this game, you would have been able to sit Deshaun halfway through the third quarter. Like it would have been over at that point. It would have been well past over. All right. So those are my first 3 overall thoughts before I really get into the nitty gritty of this game. Now let's get into the nitty gritty of this game, which is interesting, right? Because this game starts off and like, if you're Arizona, you would almost be convinced you're going to be okay. Because you get to like the 50-yard line on your first drive and yeah, you peter out, but you know what? It's not as bad as everybody said it was. And maybe today is not going to be that bad. Oh, who knew that the 27 yards they got on that drive would be the longest drive that they got all game? So that's how the Cardinals' first drive went. After that, it was pure chaos. It was Myles Garrett jumps up, blocks this pass by Clayton Tune on 3rd and 7, and that was it for offense for Arizona for the rest of the game. After that, just pure domination, just nonstop, unmitigated, uncensored, just pure domination. If you're the Cleveland Browns, this is the template. Right? Like this is how you want to beat under 500 teams from now on, because you're going to be in a position where you're going to play teams that aren't as good as you. This is the template, right? Dominate them defensively, smother them offensively with the run game, and then finish them with Deshaun Watson. That's what happened in this game, right? The Browns dominated them defensively, did not allow them to breathe. And then offensively, we ran the ball, ran time of possession. And then when it came to close the game, Deshaun Watson threw the ball deep and ended it, right? That's what you need to go down if you're the Cleveland Browns to be the kind of team that you hope to be this year. And this is kind of the template to do that. No, Deshaun doesn't put up great numbers in this game. No, Deshaun doesn't do crazy stuff. He does smart things in this game, right? Some smart mobility here where he's getting the ball off to Jerome Ford and he's dumping the ball off here or he's running out of bounds. Those are the things that you want to see out of Deshaun Watson in this game. Now, again, I mentioned Deshaun starts this one off slow. His short passes just weren't happening. Like nothing was really happening for him. He seemed a little late. He seemed like a guy coming back off injury in the first quarter of this game. And also it is worth noting, right? Because since we have had to watch Deshaun Watson come back after a long hiatus or a significant hiatus, 1, 2 times and now 3 times after this injury, like we're going to attribute every slow start that Deshaun Watson has to the suspension, to the shoulder again, right? Like that, we're going to have a tendency to do that. One thing to note is it does seem like if you look at Deshaun Watson's career splits, he has consistently been a bit of a slow starter in his NFL career. And that's something to pay attention to and to keep in mind, because every time he has a slow start, it might not be because of some injury. It might be because that's just how he plays, right? He has a style of play where he's more cerebral. He likes to see how the game's going to unfold. He wants to see what punches they're going to throw early on so he can really throw some timely punches later on in that game. This is kind of how Deshaun Watson plays football, where he starts off a little slow. Now, I do think the injuries have contributed to why he started off so slow in some of these games. Like, I don't think he starts off as slow as he does in this one on a normal basis, but it might just be a thing that he starts slow. That might just be how Deshaun Watson plays. Get ball, and then if he gets into the fourth quarter, he starts to do things close. This also happened in the Cincinnati game where he didn't start off the fastest. Late in the first quarter, Deshaun Watson starts to get going, makes this big throw to Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper would have himself a day. I think he had over 150 receiving yards and 6 receptions. By the way, if you're wondering, yes, Clayton Tune is still having a bad day during all of this. Look, I'm not going to walk through every Browns defensive possession. Clayton Tune was having a bad day. It don't matter what quarter it was. It don't matter if it was first, second. Clayton Tune was having an awful time. So yeah, I'll throw some Clayton Tune getting beat up highlights. It really feels wrong at this point. Like, the man was just getting his ass beat. It's interesting. But here's an interesting dilemma that you're in as Browns fans, right? This run right here, Deshaun Watson runs the ball and he cuts up field so he can try to get the first down. He does not get it, but he does force a 4th and short, which you do convert, which does lead to points. It ends up being the drive, in my opinion, that puts the game away, because it was obvious the Arizona Cardinals were not capable of scoring 10 points against this defense. The question is that a play you still want Deshaun Watson to make? Knowing all of that, is that still a play you want Deshaun Watson to make? Because if he slides there, it's 3rd and 3. Then you get to 4th and 3. My bad, not 3rd and 3, 4th and 3. You don't go for it more than likely. And since you don't go for it, you punt it. You don't score. This game hangs around at a 3-point lead, and maybe Arizona sneaks their way back into it or starts to think that they can get back into this game, and it changes the whole dynamic of this game. It seems meaningless when it happens for him to take that hit, but you never know if that hit is going to be impactful. And I think that's the tough thing when people say, hey, he doesn't need to take that hit at that moment, and they tell Deshaun to slide or that it's not worth it. We only know if he needed to take that hit in hindsight. In the moment, it feels like every hit he takes is super necessary to get whatever yard it is, because you never know what the result is going to lead to, or what just getting a little bit closer is going to lead to. And I think that's just something we just going to have to find our peace with during the season, because we're going to debate about it all year. Every time he takes a hit, people are going to get mad, debate, want to cuss out Kevin Stefanski. And, you know, I don't know if any of that's really going to be warranted, because it's a question of what if, and it's all hypothetical. It's just tough. But that's one of those situations where you're going to be in. It might be a 3rd down. You know, he might try to get closer. He might try to take a hit. And if he doesn't get hurt, okay. But it's going to be a talking point, you know, and it's going to be something interesting to see. Hey, my guy, Marquise Goodwin had a couple drops here, and it made me realize, like, oh, this is probably why they brought in Jerry Jeudy, to be able to catch these kind of opportunities. Deshaun threw some beautiful balls to Marquise Goodwin. He just could not come down with it on both times. Now, it's not like Jerry Jeudy's an amazing catch through contact guy. I pointed that out, where he's not the greatest catch through contact guy, but I do think he's a better version of that than like Marquise Goodwin. And I think these are passes that you would expect Jerry Jeudy to come down with, but Marquise just couldn't. One thing I thought Deshaun also did a good job in this game of doing is just taking the check down, right? Seeing the running back there, throwing the ball to the running back and not ignoring him, and just letting the running back get the yak yardage instead of it being him. By the way, if you're wondering, yes, the Browns defense is beating the ever-living garbage out of Clayton Tune. This eventually Clayton Tune throws an interception to Sione Takitaki. This was an interesting sequence here, because I thought that this sequence should have ended the game when it happened. So Sione Takitaki got a interception. Deshaun Watson makes a pretty nice throw here to Elijah Moore. He goes on a run on 3rd and 11 to extend a drive. So big run there, doesn't even take a hit. And they get to like the 30. Dustin Hopkins misses this field goal, one of his rare misses of the year. And it kind of extends this game. Not really, because I thought the game was over when they were up 10-0. But it's one of those spots where I'm like, man, Nick Chubb. Like, if you had Nick Chubb, you probably would have been able to get significantly closer to scoring on that drive. And again, you probably could have ended the game right there. But it doesn't matter, because on the very next drive that the Browns get the ball, Deshaun Watson throws this ball to Amari Cooper. And then Kareem Hunt scores on his wing T touchdown. And boom, Browns win the game 27-0. This was the Browns' defense most dominating performance of the year. And the Browns offense did a good job of capitalizing on the mistakes of Arizona to be able to put up enough points, 27 points. Nobody's going to complain about that, to win this game. Clearly, this was a defensive-led effort by the team, but the offense finished when they needed to, made the plays when they needed to. And again, it alludes to what I've talked about with Deshaun Watson being true throughout this rewatch, before this rewatch, when people would talk about, was he useful in those wins? You could count them every single game where the Browns won while Deshaun Watson was the starting quarterback and he finished the game. You can count to a fourth quarter play or fourth quarter score that helped put the game away. We saw it against Cincinnati. You could go back and check my work on that. You saw it versus Tennessee. You could go back and check my work on that. You saw it this week versus the Arizona Cardinals, and I promise you're going to see it next week versus the Baltimore Ravens. He made plays in the fourth quarter that put games away or put games close or had a big role in winning. That doesn't mean he was the greatest quarterback in the world, but that does mean that he was part of why the team was winning those games, and why I think that narrative that the team won in spite of Deshaun Watson is one of the more ridiculous, bold-faced lies that just gets told, because nobody is going to try to defend Deshaun, because Deshaun is not really the most easy person to defend right now. So that is what it is. That's my thoughts on that week nine game versus Arizona. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.